Admiral's log, July 17th, 1923. The war with France has kicked off, and we're not the only ones in the fight. Italy, Germany, and Austria-Hungary have joined the fray. Our initial clashes with the French Navy in the Mediterranean have gone better than expected. We scored a solid success, and it's had a bigger impact than we anticipated. The skirmish, a well-executed engagement by our forces, rattled the French. They've responded by pulling back their ships to their home waters. This move has left their overseas colonies almost defenseless. Looks like our strategy to divide and conquer is hitting the mark. The French Navy's recall has opened up a significant opportunity for us. Their colonies, especially in Asia, are now ripe for the taking. This is exactly what we planned for, stretching their forces thin, forcing them to make tough choices, then capitalizing on the openings they leave behind. Our forces are ready to move in. We've got a window here, and we're going to take full advantage of it. The success in the Mediterranean was just the start. Now we shift gears and take the fight to a new front, where we can really make an impact. It's a complex situation with multiple nations involved and battles on different fronts. But we've prepared for this. We're maneuvering on a grand chessboard, and so far, our moves are paying off. The next step is crucial, and we're poised to make it count. This war is turning into a broader conflict than any of us expected, but I believe we've got the upper hand. Our strategy is working, and we'll keep pushing, keep outsmarting them. We have to pick our battles carefully, though. This is no time to get complacent.
Hey guys, Stealth here, and welcome to episode 24. The war against the French has kicked off with that fight against the enemy battleship and the battlecruiser. Their battlecruiser was lost. Now we get an opportunity to take on some heavy cruisers. These heavy cruisers are well armed. That is 6 10.5-inch guns, a couple of 8.3s, 5.1s, 3.6s. They're basically very, very sizable gun batteries. They're not fast though, 24.5 knots. These are somewhat similar, but this is the Jules Michelet class, and this is the Dessay class, which only has, well, only has 4 10.1 inchers. Tigre is yet another class of 7.4s. So this is the older class. And then we got the light cruiser with a couple of 7.4s. I, however, have the Apostel Piotr with her 13-inch guns, the Perm with her 13-inch guns, and one destroyer, the Tochny, to spot for them all. Let's fight a couple of heavy cruisers. Let's see these French ships. It's a bit of a weird mix of ships that they have here. This is that gun battery, which is the older one with the 10.1s. Definitely one of those tumble home ships. Over here we have the more modern heavy cruiser. You can still see some casemates bow and stern. Interesting that these things are so low to the water and the ship does not immediately take on water. This is that 10.5-inch warship. Interesting to note that most of the firepower is stern-oriented. Then we got the last heavy cruiser with the 7.4s, and all the guns on the balconies, which I think looks great. It looks like a very interesting design. Good lord, this thing's taking on a lot of water. So much so that it completely gets lost of view. Now, why are these ships here? These ships are here to take out my transports. The Apostel, the Perm, and the Destroyer are not exactly here to escort them, but that's kind of what they ended up doing. So they happen to be here at the right place at the right time. The French so far seem to be taking a lot of damage from enemy mines. I intend to make that damage a little worse by also adding a bunch of 13-inch shells. Right now, the game does seem to think that 13-inch high explosive is going to do enough. I'm not too sure. I'm not seeing great numbers there. And considering the amount of armor that I can pen, I think AP is more than reasonable here. We are, of course, getting some return fire. And whereas initially I thought that these cruisers would just pick the better option and disengage, they're actually pushing. Which is, as it turns out, not a great idea. I already got a hit here. That's the CL. The CL is going after the DD. I don't want that. I want the DD to stay alive, considering the fact that I need this thing to eventually Eliminate French destroyers. Sorry, French submarines. Let's see, these boys are most likely packing torps. Yep, there we go, 6.1 clicks. You got 6.4. You got 6.7. That's some pretty serious and dangerous torpedo armaments over there. Let's slow down, get more accuracy, and just clobber these things. Because it looks like they don't stand a chance. Which is the type of fight I want. The French, even though the previous engagement didn't go well for them, are formidable enemies. They have a lot of firepower. They have a lot of high-end tech, especially when compared to myself. And I am not at all convinced that I would win a 1-on-1 against their battleship. Last time around against that battlecruiser, I feel like it was an okay fight, and I disengaged at the right time. Had I potentially stayed longer and pushed my luck there, I might have ended up losing potentially a battlecruiser or the battleship. Because that also involved, I think it was the Perm that was involved there. Look at these ships all taking massive amounts of damage. Their armor quality is 120%, so they're definitely wearing good armor. This thing is maxed out on armor. I wonder if this is a player design. Ooh, you seem to have misplaced the turret. There she goes. Tumble home, tumbles into the water. May it be the first of many. Their light cruiser's also not looking particularly happy. Guns pointing up in the air, which is a good place for them to be, because it means they're not targeting my ships. The Jules Michelet, that's their... yeah, they're 10.5. That's 182 million for a heavy cruiser. We got Tigre with 114, and this is probably somewhere in that range as well. 104, yeah. The CL, I think it's going to be fairly cheap. Yeah, 67 million. It's not that expensive. But then again, it's an older design. Now, the French are very numerous. They got a lot of ships. But the real question is, how many of those ships are actually fieldable? How many of those ships are currently undergoing service because they ran into a mine? You might argue that if a ship runs into a mine, it can still fight. And yeah, you'd be right. But I feel that most of the time the AI does prefer not to have them fight and instead pulls them into shipyards for repairs. Which, of course, arguably is the better choice, because a ship that has already taken damage and then goes and meets, for example, the Piotr or the Perm, could find itself not returning to a shipyard at all. Accuracy is good here. We already got trained crews. Very nice. The cadets on the Perm, however, are no slouch, because they are looking at a 60% accuracy. And that is potentially due to their range finding, but the range finding is only coincidence too. Did I build the ship out that well? Pitch is decent, roll is very good. Yeah, I guess it's just a pretty good design. Let's have the DD follow. I don't really need it here. We're just going to end these guys. And I'm very curious to see how the war is going for the French, because they're getting attacked everywhere. Germany, Italy, Austria-Hungary. So they're going to be definitely busy out in the Mediterranean. They might need to send some ships to the North Sea to counter the Germans. And I am also in the Mediterranean, and I'm going to be threatening their colonies. So they're going to have to make some very hard choices about where they want to fight, what they want to defend. Now, finishing off these heavy cruisers is not going to be particularly interesting. So I'm just going to skip to the results screen. The result of these two victories I've had over the French, and potentially all the other pressure that they're facing in the rest of the world, forces them to immediately consider a peace treaty. This is not the plan. The plan against the French is twofold. One, we're going to go and take victory points. The more victory points we have, the more likely it is we have a potential shot at getting one of their colonies, potentially multiple. Two, we're going to make sure that a place like over here, Annam, gets invaded. They really have a very, very tiny army force. I don't think it's going to quite stay that way. But if we can take this, we can get even more territory from them. So it's going to be one massive blow against all the territories that the French currently hold. As for their navy, they're getting hit hard. They only have 23 battleships left. They had 30 2 months ago, I think. When it comes to their cruiser fleet, they're still looking pretty solid, but they did lose a couple of submarines. Of course, they're not just going to sit idly by and let all of this happen. They are building 37 new ships. I don't know what exactly their shipbuilding capability is, but it looks to be impressive. All of those new ships are going to have to come out of somewhere. When it comes to their shipping capability, they're also getting hit pretty hard. So ideally, their economy is going to tank. Of course, also because we're going to take down more of their territory. Now, time for another fight. These ships are not ideally, or not strictly theirs. These are owned by Egypt. The Gascon is very dangerous. That's 8 14.5-inch guns. And then we have the Saint Thomas d'Aquin, which also has 15-inch guns. I have the Petrov with 13-inchers, and that's the Tsarévich, which is, oh boy, it's an old Petrov. It's a Petrov that was bought by Greece a long time ago, and they did not send it in for remodernization. So really, I only have one battleship with inferior guns, with a cadet-level crew, going up against these battleships, or battleship and battlecruiser. This is not necessarily going to be a fun fight, but let's see how far I can get. At a range of 25 kilometers, a little over that, the Petrov opens up. Surprisingly, she even has accuracy at this range, giving about a 4% chance to land a shell on target. At this point, however, unfortunately, I think, yeah, we got smoke screens. So we're going to send the DDs forward to try and scout, see beyond the smoke, or at least, let's say, around the smoke. And ideally, be able to land a couple of hits on these things, because the French, they do have range on me now. What remains to be seen is how accurate they're going to be, and I might be able to learn some of it. Yeah, they got good accuracy. Their hit chance is 0.6, but a salvo hit, so any of 6 guns, is going to be 3.7% chance, and it's going up. Their tech is good, their long-range tech is good, their hull stability is good. Crew training is not ideal. They got a second-tier gun, so that means Mark II 15-inchers. Yeah, they got a ton of bonuses. I think this is not a fight I really want to take. Because whereas previously against the heavy cruisers I had a really good advantage, right now I feel like I do not. So I'm going to disengage with these ships. I'm going to split them up, because Petrov can run at 24 knots. But Tsarévich, basically one of the old Petrov invasion ships, never designed to see combat, well, not at all like this, is in a far worse state, only doing 20 knots. So we're going to have to try and run away. And this is something I generally don't do in my fights. I tend to just stay and fight it out. But seeing the current conditions, and seeing how unfavorable they are, I am not going to take this fight. We're going to just boldly run away and live to fight, ideally, another day. Unfortunately, as I was disengaging, Zarki took a very unlucky hit. 22,000 points of damage from one stray 15-inch shell, and the whole destroyer just immediately sank. Unfortunate, but most of the capital ships escaped completely unharmed. Does of course give the French some victory points, but I can live with that. I actually very much like this, let's say, new style of fighting that I'm doing in this campaign. Especially this war, I'm really having to pick my fights carefully. I'm really having to figure out, okay, is this something I can win? Or do I need to fight somewhere or something else? And that's, so far, in Dreadnoughts, really, most of the campaigns, is not something I've had to do. Most of the times you just roll over the enemy. And this time, it is not so much so. Now, the French have taken some losses. I am building up a combination task force here. This is a battleship and 2 battle cruisers, so we are getting towards the tonnage that I need, but we're not quite there yet. I'm also going to be sending, yeah, there it is, the Yakov, which is another 16,500 tons. And unfortunately, that's about all the ships I have. I am, however, building a new ship. That is the Sinop, which is going to start in the Poti port. Hold on, in Poti? That's not exactly... Oh, right, yeah. They're going to spawn there, fine. The Suez Canal, is that available? Because if Egypt is fighting me, there is a pretty decent chance that they're not too eager to let me go through the Suez Canal. I can understand why. There we go. We're going to see about pushing these ships here. The Petrov can go with the destroyer escort. Yep, we can go through the Suez. Perfect. Why the Suez? Well, I want to end up here in Southeast Asia. I'm going to have to resend or send another one of the battleships out there just to get the required tonnage to do any invasion. And then, of course, we're going to have to bring as many ships over there as possible, because my tonnage is just not that good. And as such, I'm going to have to bring a lot more firepower. Now, I am activating another battle cruiser. The Chesma is activating in the Black Sea. So by the time the Chesma is activated and Sinop is released from her moorings, we should have another 46,000 plus 26,000, yeah, about 70,000 tons of warship going towards the Southeast Asia theater. They're going to take a while getting there, though. Hopefully, in the meanwhile, the guys over in the Mediterranean, most likely the French warships that are still operating here, like the battleship there and 2 battleships there, are going to keep quiet, because I am not at all interested in fighting them. What I could send them is a destroyer, sorry, is a submarine. I do have some. We have, yeah, this is not a great set of submarines, but we should be able to get at least some damage out of them. And over here, all of these ports have one submarine that's capable of laying mines. So you can see that all of my all of my ports. So you can see that all of my ports are mined. Although mine lane capacity currently says it's none, which is something I don't really understand. Ah, there we go. Mine lane capability 75, but that's probably the DD. Yeah, this has depth charges and mine lane capability. No, mine hunting. And this carries mines. And this supposedly also carries mines, but it doesn't say so. Anyway, on to the next months. And let's see where the French are going to make their next move. A few months later, I have the ships where I want them. We're going to link up with the Yakov over here. This is the last real remaining piece of the fleet. Right now, it's 1 battleship, the Yakov, 2 battle cruisers and 2 heavy cruisers. And Tonkin is not very heavily defended, but it is quite valuable. 2.4 billion. And keep in mind that the French, they get province income of plus 25%, so I'm probably seeing their value. When it comes to the Soviets, I am getting a different value. Province income is 55% bonus. So I should be getting even more from Tonkin. So that means time to send the troops. Naval invasion. And Tonkin requires 6,790 tons. So yeah, I should have that and change. So that's the first of many invasions. Now we also have over here, if I can select it, the battleship Petrov and the destroyer Rybets. We're going to send those along here as well to make these invasions go potentially even faster. Or to potentially launch multiple invasions at the same time. That'd be fantastic. Over here we have a convoy that needs defending. Unfortunately, I have a very poor set of ships, as it's the Cesarevich. It's the same Petrov from the Greek. It's 4 11-inch guns against this battlecruiser with 15-inch guns and an actual French destroyer. This one is owned by Egypt. I don't see how I'm going to win this one and defend this convoy, because my 11-inch guns against that battlecruiser are going to be pretty impotent, and my destroyers against all those secondaries are going to have a very hard time trying to get close. Huh. Maybe I can scare off the battlecruiser and keep my convoy safe, because I really am very fond of my convoy ships. Convoy ships are critical to your economy. Oh, don't tell me it's a storm. It's not a storm, it's just, it's a little cloudy. Yeah, right. Okay, boys, go find the enemy. Oh, these are the new DDs. Oh, that might give me options. This is destroyer Yastreb and the older destroyer Vladivostok. The new DDs, I designed these off-screen, have a couple of 3-inch guns. But because these things have such a high pitch and roll, I'm not relying on their guns. These are mostly ASW platforms. So they have depth charges, they have advanced radio, advanced hydroacoustic search, they have mine laying capability as well as mine hunting capability. So they're much more utilitarian ships. But if I am to put them into a fight, they have been given a couple, and that is 6 20-inch torpedo launchers. With that, at 7-kilometer range, they can potentially change the tide of a battle, or at least feel like they're contributing to it. Because with 6 20-inch torpedoes, you can potentially deal a substantial amount of damage if you can get close enough. Now, the older Vladivostok also carries torpedoes, but she only has 6.2 kilometer range. And with that, she's going to be a little bit more exposed to enemy fire. She, like her sister, semi-sister, is very, very bad, rolling and pitching all over the place. So the chance that these 5.9ers are going to do a whole lot of useful work, not that great. I think we're going to have to do a suicide run with the Ostreb, which is fairly cheap for a DD. It's 15 million only. So I've kept these things cheap. Vladivostok is 12. So we're going to send the Vlad in first and then the Ostreb after it. Hold on, why are you guys over there? It's not where you're supposed to be. 7.9 clicks. Go to like almost no speed, because we're getting a cruise speed bonus at 12 knots. Just shy of parking the ship. The French torpedoes are impressive at 6.3 kilometers. I think they're using the fast torpedoes, and they're pretty scary at that. Those fast torpedoes are difficult to dodge, especially for something like this ship, which comes with no hydro. So that's going to be all sorts of fun. Oh, you smoked up. I'm going to assume that they launched the torpedoes against the Ostreb. And with that, I should be able to see them with that hydroacoustic search. The Ostreb has the best armor that I could put on it, which is about 0.8 inches, plus 110% quality. The Vladi has less than that, not as well protected, and, well, she's just an older destroyer. So you're going to find that it doesn't have the same armor, but at short range, she might be able to land a bit... Whoops! She might be able to land a few shells. Oh, your Ostreb immediately dumps all of her torpedoes into the water. Whoa! These knife fights are always so dangerous. I should have turned off the torpedo launchers because I don't want to engage this destroyer with my torpedoes. It's not the first time I'm engaging the French destroyers, by the way. I have done 1 or 2 fights off screen against these guys. And they're blisteringly quick. Like 39 knots. These things are pure hunters. They rush you, they torpedo you, they hit, and do almost no damage, and then they run off. What did you hit me with? Like a foam dart? No, that was a 20-inch torpedo. Look at the amount of damage. A destroyer took a 20-inch torpedo. It took 3% of damage. And it basically went, yeah, that's cute, but your torpedo doesn't hurt me. It's a single hull bottom. It has standard bulkheads. It has anti-flood. How the fuck did you only take this level of damage? The amount of hidden torpedo protection that these ships get is just bananas. And I know I've said this before, it just gets highlighted every single time. Whoa! That's something else that these guys do. They tend to have torpedoes by larger numbers. Yikes. Oh, that's a dud. Than you would actually like. Like, they got one, I think, triple launcher. And then 2 duals. Here's the triple on the stern, there's the duals on the sides. But they're now out of weaponry. And because these guys are so fast, they're paying a very hefty price per DD. That's 51 million for a destroyer. I think my light cruisers used to be more expensive than that. So, taking down one of these things is pretty important. Even one destroyer is a win. Because these destroyers are very dangerous. That capability to rush my capital ships needs to get eliminated very, very quickly. Because the longer these things are around, and the more numerous they get, the more dangerous it becomes. And that wrecks up quickly. Now, there is one ship that I have not seen, and that's their battlecruiser. It's kind of getting a lot of attention simply by not being there. Because this thing was supposed to be raiding my commerce. If it's decided that it doesn't want to do that, I would be much obliged. But I think it's fairly unlikely that we'll not see this thing. I mean, I would welcome it, but yeah. A couple of 11-inchers sailing in. Just at 1.2% chance to hit. 8.5. Now we're getting somewhere. Chance to pen. Pretty piss poor. Now, this French destroyer has taken a lot of damage, has taken on a lot of water, and it's still doing 28 knots. Which is faster than the top speed of the Yastreb. Good lord. Boy, are you fast. Try and catch it. We cannot let this thing go. It's too valuable. But hitting it at this level of speed is proving difficult. And having a smokescreen on is not helpful. Now the Vladi is faster at the moment. I don't think the French are going to be able to pump their holes dry. So they should remain at about that 28 knots, I think. 17 knots. 15 knots. 23, there she goes. Zipping across the waterways again. Yes, Treb's almost out of AP. Like I said, the guns are mostly there as an afterthought. What do you mean you cannot pen this with a 5.9er? I find that very hard to believe, unless you hit the turret. That could be an explanation. Hold on, I think we're taking fire from the battlecruiser. Is the BC finally getting involved? It took him long enough. Partial. Go to HE. There she goes. Bit of flooding damage. Yastreb is not very good at maintaining her speed in a turn. But again, she was never meant to be used in a role like this. This is not what I was hoping for. I was hoping that heavy cruisers would take on a role like this, defeating smaller ships. That's what I have the new Yakov class ships for. So, the Yastreb, she arguably is not supposed to be anywhere near the front line like this, unless she's doing like a final stand torpedo attack against a big ship. Okay, slow yourself down. Use a torpedo. Oh, yeah. 110 damage. And then we hit you with something else. Hold on. Yeah. We hit you with a torpedo for 109 points of damage. And that's a 20-inch torpedo. But then we hit you with a 5.9-inch shell for 1200. Oh, this game makes no sense. Okay, everybody, fall back. If that battlecruiser is uninterested in the fight, so am I. Let's just pick our fights wisely. We've sunk the destroyer, we've protected the convoy. Wherever the hell it is. 26 kilometers out. And we seem to be in the clear. So let's press the advantage. And look at that, those DDs are pretty expensive, victory points wise. That 1300 points, almost 1400 for a destroyer. These things are so expensive and so fast, which makes them expensive, that it's also very expensive for the French to lose them. Which is good. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing how that invasion is going to turn out, because I think I have more than reasonable amounts of naval warships or naval tonnage available in the area of Tonkin, so I should be able to take that territory from them. And what I also noticed is that, I think due to my increase in capital ships, my... where is it? Yeah, my army logistics is actually really good. 62%. I mean, compared to most of the other nations, it's 100%. But the 62% is really good. Most of the time, I'm sitting around 25, 28. It's pretty bad. So, that invasion. Let's see how it turns out. We're going to do that, however, in a future episode. This one has run its course. We've done our first bit of battle with the French. we have gotten our first couple of victory points against the French. 27k versus less than a K. And now, time for invasion. See you guys soon for the next episode.